begin by settling into a comfortable seated posture. Your whole body softens, crown of your head floating up. Anywhere that you might be experiencing weight in your body is just a kind of tension that's catching and holding this gentle movement through the body. And so the cure, of course, is to align yourself and to allow it to release and to just fall through the body into the ground. Del made it.
Yay, welcome, Del.
With every exhalation, allowing your body to release. With every inhalation, allowing the stillness to deepen. Your whole body soft and open. Just for another minute, deepening this sense of stillness and presence. Remember that the ability to let go of your body, to quiet your mind, these are foundational in any internal practice. And then whenever you're ready, And again, as I tried to say every week or every day, the people who are arriving here that are lurking in the background and are not really sure what we're doing, please do click down beneath the video and check out the introductory video that we made about this set. That way you don't have to feel lost or overwhelmed as you follow us. And then you're welcome to join anytime. Allowing the warmth of your palms to guide the awareness into that space beneath the skin. Allow your awareness to spread out into these areas that we're softening. Simply placing your awareness there with this gentle, loving intention has a healing impact. Allow this continuous, gentle stimulation to become a kind of somatic meditation, constantly calling you back into the present moment, back into simply feeling, slowly becoming more and more aware of the tissues inside your body. Use whatever kind of touch helps you soften that layer. Today for me here, it feels like the fingertips, could be your palms if you'd like. Try a few different things on all of these points and find what feels good to you today. Specifically feeling good to that layer a little deeper in the body. I wonder where Chris is today.
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
Get strong.
Let me know if you need any more.
Thanks, love. If you go downstairs. I added fresh ginger to my green tea.
You want to hand it to me?
Thank you. Sure you don't want to come on camera?
I'm quite positive.
You'd be very popular. Thank you. She's so nice to me. That's true. It's so comforting to be present and soft with ourselves. Most of our experiences are all based around force and gripping and judgment and discomfort, and I don't know how much of that is innate and how much of that seems to be cultural. I know that the Dalai Lama made some interesting discussions around how when he started coming into the Western world, Europe and the United States, how he was shocked at how much internal self-loathing and shame people had because he had never experienced or been around it before in his culture, which I think is a pretty interesting thing. Why, thank you. You're very kind to me. Did you hear what I was saying?
Uh-uh.
I was saying how I was curious to know if this capacity to be so hard on ourselves and unkind to ourselves, how much of that is related to just being human, some sort of internal tick that we seem to have, or how much of it is related to culture. And I talked about how the Dalai Lama was shocked when he came to the West and discovered how much self-loathing and this kind of thing that we had going on. So, of course, I only know the cultures that I've been part of, and so many of them are essentially now all Western cultures. Like, we're all essentially the same culture these days. We've become amalgamated in so many ways. Even in Costa Rica, which had some very different values than we have here in the States. But it's all essentially the same culture. So I don't know how much of influence that was, but I was saying how lovely it is just to pause and just be kind and present in a very visceral and literally visceral way. It's how do we just connect with ourselves and deliver this message of softness and kindness without having to stare at ourselves in the mirror and go, okay, I like you.
Yeah.
I'm okay. But instead, just this gentle, connecting, repeated message of presence and friendliness. It just seems very powerful. There's this idea of, since we were talking about intention, and this idea of chi pathways, intention pathways that we have to build over time, like the danxian. The danxian isn't something that everybody has. They have a tian, they have a field, but they have to build a danxian over time. Correct practice. And that's just one of the chi lines, chi fields that has to be created with continuous practice. And I was thinking of it in terms of, like, as a kid, I saw my dad do the thing where he would raise one eyebrow. I thought that was really cool. And so I spent who knows how many hours and weeks in the mirror, like trying to get my one eyebrow. And then when I was able to do it, I never worked on the other one. So even to this day, I can only do this way. I can't go the other way.
That's really funny.
Because you have to establish those pathways. You have to grow new pathways so that when you have an idea of something, it can impact your body. It can create this movement. If you try to wiggle your ears, probably.
I was just thinking, I learned to do that after watching Little Rascals as a kid, to move my ears up and down.
And how long did it take? Do you remember?
I don't remember. No, I don't remember.
It didn't happen right away, though.
No. Yeah, it was like completely numb. I couldn't even fathom how
That's right.
that happened.
That's right. And so I feel that it's the same with these, even the mental emotional pathways and all of these things that we do. It just takes this consistent daily thing where it feels like nothing's happening, and slowly things change. Whether it's this consistent message, getting better at being friendly with ourselves, getting better at relating to ourselves physically, which is such a huge issue in our culture. Getting better at returning to the danxian, returning to stillness, all of these things. They aren't things you learn from a book and suddenly get. You have to build these chi pathways, whether it's an eyebrow or the ears or the heart. I think it's really interesting. And I think it's one of the great gifts of practices like this.
I'm laughing at Dell's comments.
What is he saying?
He says, I'm expecting Mel to show herself and not even be human at this point. just gonna waltz on camera looking like a plebeian or something. I don't even know what that is, but I love it.
The Pleiades.
Oh, the Pleiades.
That's what I'm guessing. An alien.
Aliens. Okay. What was that from?
The Pleiades. It's a star constellation. Seven sisters. It's just there's some people that it's these days it's like saying Martian.
Right. Yeah, I've heard the term before. I just couldn't remember where, in what context. That's hilarious.
She is definitely an alien. You're absolutely correct. But she's my kind of alien. Mel will probably remain a mystery. Although she has committed to doing a podcast with me. I'm saying this live online so that you guys could hold her to it. She doesn't want to be on camera, but she's happy to be a voice of wisdom to the world.
Happy to be a voice.
Happy to be a voice.
A voice in the void.
A voice in the void. So yeah, Del, I haven't read all the comments, but I'm really happy that you're having this sense of connection with yourself and this time to just be loving. Being loving and friendly really does get easier with practice. In Buddhism, they call it the metta meditation, where you're just feeling loving, and it gets easier to be friendly and loving. You have to create those pathways, literally build them. You have to grow them. I think it's cool. I think it's, as neuroscience advances, I love the idea that we'll actually be able to see when people grow wisdom, grow the ability to love. We can look and be like, oh, look at you're 30% more friendly now. It's a good thing you've been drinking enough water, because it's all the same. It's just wonderful. I like it. Being very gentle, especially if your chest and breast area happens to be swollen or distended or uncomfortable right now, depending upon the time of the month or pregnancy status. These areas may be very sensitive, so please be extra gentle and kind. And just to emphasize soft movement, pressure waves, that kind of thing, more just loving touch, a melting touch, rather than trying to get in there and move things around. It'll be funny because Allie has been wanting to have a podcast for a long time, and Allie has that gift of gab, and he's such a chatterbox in a wonderful way. And it would be funny if you had a podcast before he did. Because he wants to do that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Maybe it will encourage him. He'd be amazing at it. He makes people feel so comfortable, fills in any spaces. Just a gift.
Yeah, that is a gift. I'm still learning to be comfortable with silences and conversation.
You're very good at it.
It's nice.
Yeah. I feel like that's a superpower, just to let yourself be quiet.
Yeah.
I used to have lots of scar tissue in these areas, and I don't feel it anymore. It's really nice. It's managed to dissolve. Just lots of IV work and stuff as a kid.
Oh.
Also claw marks on my arms. You can still see some of those scars.
Claw marks from your fur babies?
No, although that's probably there too. No, more specifically, training with Filipino martial artists who use their nails.
Oh. Wow. Ouch.
Lots of, and just in fighting in general, people grab you and dig in, you know.
Yeah.
Same with like you end up with teeth scars. You can see teeth shapes on my knuckles.
Wow.
Just stupid ways to hurt yourself.
I have a couple scars on my hand from
Handcuffs.
From my sister. From what I remember, my sister and I also used to get into clawing matches with each other, and I think that's what those are. But I'm not sure. I've had them for so long.
She's a beast. Unstoppable.
Oh, I'm sure I gave her some in return. I was not an angel either, buddy.
Gently opening. It is such an interesting question to ask yourself. What is the most loving way? Like if I wanted to show myself the most love and I wanted to do this movement, what is the way to do this in which is the most loving and friendly? Like how do I communicate that the deepest? That's a specific skill. And what an amazing skill to develop. You have to try to feel that, just projecting love and connection. It's just not a thing that we ever do for ourselves. We do it for each other.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, it's easy for me to imagine how I would do this to someone else in a gentle, loving way, but I have to imagine that.
You have to like
figure out how to
externalize
do it for myself.
Right?
Yeah.
And it should be something that we find in ourselves first.
Yeah.
Just amazing. It was really neat to see that on that video. Or would you see that somebody doing ASL? Oh, it was a play that we saw.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
ASL is such a beautiful language. I'd really like to find someone to practice it with. I wish Netflix would create a little bar, a little box, and then having somebody signing like as a form of subtitles. I bet with AI they'll be able to start doing that.
Yeah.
I guess they just have subtitles, but it'd still be fun to have. Wow, Del, you were so fast.
Thanks to Del, your videos are getting likes.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you, Del. I never put that like and subscribe thing. And so it seems like it works because people rarely like and subscribe my videos. even if I get lots and lots of watches. I have that interesting YouTube problem where I have something like 4,000 subscribers, but very few people watching my videos. I don't know what that is. If it's just bots or something. Well, I was going to wait until Chris showed up to talk about it, but maybe Chris will watch this later. Today is the first day of spring.
Hooray!
Hooray!
And it's so sunny here.
It's very sunny, yeah. I mean, if we don't follow the specific calendar, but more follow the signs, then at least out here near Seattle, the spring started a few weeks ago almost. Very early. It's been a very interesting time. And so the springtime, growing toward the height of the spring equinox, is the time when people tend to get the most liver chi constraint. They tend to have the most bouts of tension, anger, frustration. This is when people, like, road rage goes way up. And the police are, swamped with these kinds of problems. We tend to become a little less flexible, a little less kind, when it's the time that we really want to encourage that, because this is actually the best time to practice those kinds of qualities. And so here, for instance, as we soften the rib side, this is part of liver chi constraint, this tendency toward holding. And so this is the perfect time to spend a little extra emphasizing these areas. The liver channel moves through here. The gallbladder channel that we'll be working on today also moves through this area. So we're just softening the sides, emphasizing the sides today, twisting, lengthening, like softening long, that kind of flexibility, softening the joints, and extra kind and gentle. This whole season, that needs to be the focus. Each season brings out a slightly different emphasis and possibility for training. The winter time is especially good for deep rest and restoration, nourishing, recharging the batteries. The best time for that. Springtime is when we begin to open. We become flexible through softness, through gentleness. We cultivate kindness, creativity, generosity, humaneness. And spread it in the world as much as you can, because people that are angry and frustrated have no problem spreading that. So there has to be some kind of counterbalance to that. Softening the belly. Warming and easing these points. Notice if your legs are soft or if you're gripping. My legs are moving just because there's nothing. I'm not holding on to them at all. Just be easy. Your whole body can be like this, even when you're standing. Soft and open. Yesterday, I got to teach a private lesson, and I was working with a woman that she's been practicing and studying all these methods for as long as I've been alive. And I got to demonstrate how you can move and sink and settle and flow, squat, do all these movements without any tension, get pushed on and stuff. You just get to watch her eyes get big. Like, I didn't know that was possible. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, those moments are really exciting in practice.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was learning Tai Chi from ZhiCheng many years ago, and I was being ridiculous with some movement. I can't remember, just, adding all of this extra to the movement that didn't need to be there, using way too much force.
Yeah.
And probably with like the lightest touch, he gave me a correction, and everything just dropped, and I was still able to do the movement.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, that was so easy. And he kind of looked at me with really big eyes and he goes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It can be so much easier.
It's amazing. Everything can be so much. We just make everything hard. We don't know we're doing it, but everything can be so easy.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic. Yeah. Even now, anytime I do push hands with him or anything, because he's so willing to correct like the deep levels. Like before I even start the circle, he'll correct how I'm approaching the circle with my mind and my chi and my body.
Which is something that most of us can't.
No, we can't feel.
See.
Yeah. It becomes obvious when he shows me, but like that's the first place to start is in the intention and how you're shaping the movement inside before it comes out, and you can feel it. I'm like, okay, I don't know how to change it, Sherpa. I'm sorry. I spend a lot of time apologizing.
Yeah.
And he was doing it yesterday while we were playing the guqin together, and he was just correcting my approach to the instrument, how to release through the instrument, how to engage it. It's all of the same principles, but through playing, and it comes up. You can hear the difference when your intention and the way you approach it with your body is different. Like, it's pretty amazing. So nice just to soften, just to take the time to release. Remember these points in through here. Spleen, stomach, kidney. Liver is down in here. I'd like to show this simple movement as we draw our hands around our waist is also part of this practice. we just kind of move past it. But you do want to notice how my shoulders don't do that. I'm not rolling my shoulder forward to get my hand back. The other thing that people do is they pull their shoulders back and they lean back. It's possible instead to soften the shoulder and just to allow it to move like this so that it gets to the back. And if that's uncomfortable, of course, because a lot of different people may watch this in the future, please do feel free to use the backs of your hands or the sides of your hands. But if you can get your palms there, see if you can do it through softening lengthwise this way. If I was pulling on your arm lengthwise and I just helped you move it while still pulling outward around so that none of this has to deform. You don't have to crimp your neck. It's a different way.
Is that going to be possible for people like me whose shoulders are already rolled forward? Is there something we need to do in the beginning to get them
No.
on our back?
Well, you might want to do this sort of softening open thing to get this in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that as long as you're releasing outward, it should be able to get around.
Even if they're rolled forward?
I think so. Want to try it? Show me.
Well, I was just noticing discomfort. And so typically I like to do what you just did if you want to do it again.
Sure. Mel is showing how this is a very helpful thing. Not trying to roll the shoulders back, but to lengthen outwards so the back opens and the chest opens. If only Mel was willing to come on camera, I could show it to you. But
then they would see I'm a Pleiadian.
so you'd see her alienness. So this length through the arm that releases downward, this length continues all the way around the circle. You notice I'm not drawing this in. All of this stays open. All the way, it's still open, still open, still open, still open, even though my hand is all the way back here. And so it's a continual opening. And so Mel's right in the sense that that's a big ask for a lot of people whose shoulders are tight. But I do recommend continuing to release. I recommend Qigong and Tai Chi practice. We talk about this a lot in the Qigong practices. And so please do continue to open your shoulders. But the biggest thing to recognize is just not to grip in order to make things happen, or at least to do your best, because all of this is just a gradation of our best. We believe in you. Softening open the back. So it may look more like this. I usually enjoy that warm, vigorous feeling. That, for me, often helps soften the tissues, but for a lot of people, this may be more helpful. So again, as soon as you can, learn how to listen to whatever it is that your fascial layer is responding to and help it open. Don't follow me, because even for me, every day is different. And this is actually feeling really nice. And you can also do the same across. Emphasizing this movement outward. It's releasing of the contraction toward the center. And I apologize. I know this is loud on the microphone. I don't know why. Warming the tailbone. And we can spend extra time here. Down the back, there's a line of musculature that travels across here. This line that's usually labeled as the piriformis. But you want to release this line, opening, softening it. And then the same out here in the center of the glutes. If there's other places for you that are especially difficult or problematic, of course, do spend time there. Let's spend a little time here. So this gallbladder channel that we're focusing on today, it goes down to that little fourth toe. Would it be the ring toe? Do we put rings on our toes? People do,
I
right?
used to.
So the fourth toe. And the channel sort of begins up in here in that center circle of the glute. And then it travels down the sides of the legs, this often problematic tight line that people experience. So you can just gently soften and warm it this way. We usually don't take the time in the class to do this one. But remember that these areas, the gallbladder channel, this is also the gallbladder channel up here, up into the tight neck. It's part of the gallbladder channel. And so it's part of the body that likes to grip and become tight. But it's part of the system that responds with more tension when you poke at it. Just in the same way that if you have an angry friend and you poke at them, this is not how to help them calm down. It's how to make them explode. And so what we want to do is to soothe open this quality. In Daoist psychology, what we're calling Daoist psychology, that's a way of understanding certain kinds of emotions, is how to interact with them. Certain kinds of emotions like anger, frustration, these kinds of things, they require a certain approach, and our tissues hold those kinds of emotions. And we've already learned about how to deal with those when we were working on the ribs. This soothing, gentle, friendly touch, kind-hearted, present, warming. And then there's that point in the very center of the gallbladder channel that you can soothe and open. You can use your fingertips, your thumbs, your palms, the base of your thumb. Actually, the center of my palm today feels pretty nice. And I'm just attaching my hands and letting my skin move. But you find what helps you soften this area. Specifically that fascial layer, you're not worried about the musculature. That's nice. I rarely do it this way. Oh, I feel it all the way in my toes. And that's part of healing and kindness as well. The willingness to ask, to check in, even with yourself. How am I feeling? How does this feel? What do I need? That willingness, just like in a relationship, is hugely important, and it's something we want to do with ourselves. Check in. How does this feel? What do I need? And then offer that change. Soft circles. Yeah, I don't know why, but now instead of this part of my thumb, it feels nice to put my palms there and just circle the skin.
It does. That's what I usually do.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's this shift into spring or something. My body's like, let's try something different.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know why. But again, next week it'll probably be different.
Yeah.
But part of the skill is having enough of these tools in your tool bag, and you try them out and think, oh yeah, this is the one today. I think it's just like making food. You taste it. Today I really want something spicy. Today I really would like something sweet or crunchy. And so you just adjust what you're cooking. We want to do that with everything that heals our system. I'll get the spleen 10 point and the liver 8 point here at the same time. Doesn't feel as good on this side for some reason, so I'll do more of a rubbing. And again, I just say this to model this willingness to listen. And it models how there is no best way. It's just the way that's working for you, as long as you're working toward the actual goal, which in this case is this fascial release, this softness, this kindness. You don't suddenly switch to, whacking on yourself or pushing really hard or these kinds of things. Same goal. Whatever it is that helps you reach that goal of gentle release. Back of the knees. After this one, similarly, just letting my fingers move with the skin. Chris calls pinning it in place.
Yeah, I like that term.
Just circle rubbing, roll. All the good Chinese terms I can't use because I don't have enough Chinese speakers in the class. Oh, that's nice. So then stomach 36 and spleen 9 here, a warm. Huh. And then gallbladder 34, this point up in here, if you find these little ends of the bone here that run up from the calf, the fibula that runs beneath here, and then the tibia that runs in the front. This is the head of one, this is the head of the other. And you just find the little triangle moving toward your shin. There's a little hole there, and that's gallbladder 34. Are you able to find that? It can take some practice. It's easier to find on me, but everybody's body is different. And so these two little bones, my kneecap, here's the first bone, here's the second bone. So it's almost like a straight line from my kneecap. And then the little hole that's in front of the two. If you make that little triangle, when your knee is bent, when your leg is straight, of course, it's a different shape. That looks about right. Can you feel the space between those two little bones?
Oh, it's between.
Between
these two?
That's right.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, that's the one. It's just a little above and outside to the stomach 36 point. If you kind of go up 1 inch and out 1 inch from the stomach 36, which is next to the shin.
The bones are different on this leg.
They're not different.
Very different.
No.
Yeah.
We'll work on it later. Approach your local acupuncturist for advice. Do not follow the recommendations of the John. Oh, but this is a very good one for the spring. So this is maybe top 5 if I had to pick a random number. You want to spend this spring finding and helping to ease this point. This is wonderful for all of the sinews in the body.
Does it put a spring in your step?
It might. Yeah. It just might. So in the winter, we focused on the lower back, the knees, the feet, warming, that quality. And the spring will focus more on helping things open and move, releasing the liver, the gallbladder.
So related to that, Del asks, the tibia and fibula a little down from the gallbladder 9 point?
Gallbladder 9?
Yeah, gallbladder 9.
Gallbladder 9.
Like, are they a little bit down from that?
Gallbladder 9 is in a very different place. This is gallbladder 34. So I'm not sure where you're talking about. Gallbladder 9 is up here. Not even sure where. I think it's here. 34. That's right. So here's stomach 36 in the center of this muscle, just below the head of the tibia here. And then if I come out a little bit, here's another head of the tibia, the big part of the bone that kind of comes out this way. It's just to the outside of my kneecap. And then if I come outside to that, toward the calf a little bit further, that's one of the heads of the fibula coming down, attaching out here. And so if you use those two as 2 points on a triangle, and then come in toward the shin with my knee bit in this shape. If my leg is straight, it kind of changes it a little bit, but there's a little hollow there that you can find, a little cave, and then that should be the point. I hope that helps. I went online and I was looking at lots of videos to help people find them. So I was teaching someone how to do acupuncture on themselves, and I couldn't really find great descriptions for that. Are you excited?
Mm-hmm.
Excited about?
I'm excited to go outside.
Oh, it is really nice outside.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we have a very sunny spring-like day here today. It's been cold and rainy for so long. Mel likes the rain too. Softening the center of the calf. All the way in the V of the calf. Releasing all the way down the Achilles. Remember that you are not trying to push on it hard. You're not trying to force change. You're asking, not telling. And you can work on spleen 6 point, which remember is a joining point for these 3 yin channels, the kidney, the spleen, and the liver all come up to this point. Find a way to warm that. Gentle, kind, present. If you'd like to, let your fingers come across near the outer ankle bone, lateral malleolus. Your fingers can touch that point. That's the gallbladder channel over there. And then softening the bottom of the foot, top of the foot, side of the foot. During the springtime, we want to emphasize this liver 3 point. This may be in the top 3 things that you can work on during the spring. Gentle opening, not hard pressure. And there is a point here on the side of the foot. Remember that the gallbladder channel goes to this 4th toe. So if you can think of something for the 4th toe, a ring toe, maybe the ring on it is made out of gallbladder stones or something like that, something strange. And the side of the foot down in here, there's some little spaces there. You can allow your fingers to sink into that, and that's the gallbladder channel as well. Just not quite the direct side. We'll work on that tomorrow, but more just a little bit on top. Makes a nice spot to let your fingers in as you just kind of sink into as you soften these other points. This is the point that I grab every time when I'm holding my foot. Gallbladder 41. It's like gallbladder 34. It's a bit tricky. The gallbladder likes to wind in and around these places in the joints and kind of between spaces. That's its function. It's part of the Xiaoyang, which is like when people are sick, but they're not allowed to be sick. So we store those sicknesses away, like I was talking about. That's part of how we engage that. We, in this Chinese medicine sense, we store it in these channels. And so it kind of naturally hides away and needs to be found. Yes! Get to get you some new slippers.
And socks.
You want some of my awesome socks?
Yes, definitely.
You can subscribe again. Such a great charity. They're also selling coffee now, and they're selling soap.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Oh. I think it's like dogood.org or something like that.
Oh, great.
And they're slowly collecting all of their charities. They're just wonderful. Highly recommend these charities. Awesome Socks is the one that I'm remembering the name of, but they also sell coffee, soap, and I'm sure in the future they're continuing to expand things. Really wonderful, fun, high quality things. And they, 100% of the profits go to supporting like infant mortality in places where it's very high and problematic. They actually, using these charities, just opened a teaching hospital in, what was the name of the place? Do you remember?
Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone, yeah. And it's just so beautiful because they have something like 40% infant mortality or something ridiculous. And not for any reason other than just that they lack resources. They suffer with being poor while everybody else has too much, of course. And so they wanted to, in their words, decrease world suck. And so they just went out and found one, like, what's a simple way we can do something that has direct, clear benefits, and it's an easy fix. And so this was one they started, and it just has already made a huge impact. And so they just start these little businesses that make money, and they send the money straight to these people. It's just wonderful. If you want to get in there and tug on that fourth toe a bit, just to emphasize and feel the gallbladder channel. Comes all the way from up here down the side of the leg, side of the ankle, side of the foot. So it's an easier one to remember the pathway for. You have your little toe ring made of gallstones. Something like
I'm
that.
going to remember that one.
Something like that.
I don't know what gallstones look like, but my mind's creating this very weird, like, fleshy.
They look like pearls.
Do they?
Sure, why not?
Oh, okay.
In your imagination, they will. And if you guys have a better memory example, please feel free to share it. Steph is the most imaginative. She comes up with wild stuff. So nice.
Do you need more?
Thank you, though. Yeah, it's a beautiful day outside. Another very good thing for the springtime is going for walks. In general, when you find yourself feeling very emotional, it is not good for you to dive straight into practice. It is better for you to go for do something like a walk. I have easy wandering method. It's san bu. It just means scattered steps. And you just walk. You just allow your feet to lead you so that you're just wandering. You're just free, moving at whatever pace. You're not trying to get anywhere. You let your chi move. You let yourself be easy and free. And that's the very best practice for when you're feeling wound up. Softening open.
Are there any other times when we shouldn't practice Qigong?
Well, it depends on the kind of Qigong, of course. But if you are catching a cold, then you don't want to do styles of Qigong that are designed to seal you in or to gather and pull Qi down. So usually there's certain practices that you would do at those times that would help you express Qi while conserving it when you're just catching a cold. There's lots of warming practices that wouldn't do if you have heat conditions. During menstrual periods, you wouldn't want to speed up Qi or to hold onto it too hard into the center, because you, like Shifu with his breath, you can gather your Qi too strongly in one spot, and that can have really strong impacts on your health, and there's reasons to do it. But when your body is trying to do a different kind of movement, then you wouldn't do that. So for instance, if you're eating, you wouldn't want to do Qigongs that are trying to move Qi strongly through your stomach. That probably wouldn't be great for you.
So Del asks a question that relates to one that came up for me as well. ZhiCheng Shifu has often said not to practice Qigong if you're feeling really strong emotions. Like if you're feeling really angry or really, really tired, and Del's question is, also there's a Zen saying that says, if you can't meditate when you're angry, then it isn't Zen. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that in this case, meditation is just referring to awareness, being aware of something. And that's certainly a fine thing to do. You can always become aware. Because remember, Zen isn't a thing that you're doing. Zen, I guess depending on your definition for Zen, or Chan in Chinese, is just presence. You're simply becoming aware of your existence, even if you're just becoming aware of yourself as angry. And so you can always do that. That's always beneficial. But Qigong as a medical method, as in the sense of doing something with your body, cultivating a specific thing, there's times when you would do certain practices, like just before bed, there's practices that would help you allow your qi to sink down and fall asleep. But then there are practices that stir up your qi and move it around. And you certainly wouldn't want to do that just before bed. That would be bad for you. And so knowing the appropriate practices and when, and the better you get at it, at any practices, the more important it is to practice at the right time, in the right place, in the right way, because you can more and more strongly move things around. We were talking about a story I was just hearing from ZhiCheng Shifu. He's making a joke about how at one point he was moving qi down, doing a practice, and he looked up to speak, and he didn't have any qi like in his vocal system, so he couldn't speak. And then so he had to move qi up from what he was doing into his vocal system so he could speak. Like, that's just a very high level of control. And so if you're developing that level of skill, then you definitely want to be careful of how you use it, you know? So there's definitely times that you don't want to do certain kinds of Qigong. And that's a very important thing to come to understand about the practice that you're doing and your body, your diagnosis, what you need, and how it fits in with your lifestyle. It's just like with herbs. For some reason, culturally, people are like, oh, it's herbs, it's fine. And they just take all kinds of formulas and herbs randomly. But with acupuncture, people are terrified. I can't do acupuncture. It's dangerous. I'm stabbing myself. But it's really the other way around. Acupuncture is tremendously safe as long as you don't poke yourself in the eye or something.
Some people have phobias of needles too.
That's true. That's fair. But I've taught 6-year-olds to treat their grandparents with acupuncture. It's just fine. It works well. But herbs are actually quite dangerous. It's really the other way around. People have to know what they're using herbs for. And so I just feel like it's a big misunderstanding. And it's the same thing within Qigong, that you should know why you're practicing Qigong, when you need it, what it's for, what you're trying to do. These things aren't panacea. They're doing something specific. As long as you're doing it right. So this one right here is another very good one to do during the spring. Seated, just throughout the day, just softening your rib side, turning your waist. You're not trying to stretch or crack your back or do anything like that, because remember, that causes your body to pull back. Instead, you're just letting your body soften, easing open, twisting like a monkey king. I need to get a green shirt. I don't have any green shirts for spring.
You don't?
Not a single green shirt.
That can't be true.
Thank you, everybody. If there's any questions, Steph, if you have any questions, you can tuck you in there. If anybody showed up in the middle and wants to ask anything, they're most welcome.
Lots of really kind, thoughtful messages from Del, and
Thanks, Del.
I know you read them.
Yeah, I read them after class is closed out. Takes me a little while sometimes, so I make my way through. Does that mean he liked the class? I hope it helped.
Steph asks, is practicing Qigong in water a thing?
Sure.
Oh, I love that question.
Mel really likes to swim and be in water also. And absolutely, there's Qigong for all kinds of things. And you can practice most methods. Like, for instance, you could easily do this particular set in the bath, and that's a thing. There are different kinds of practices, even forms of Taiji that you do in the water. There's hip release practices that are for the water. There's all kinds of things. There's martial arts practices that you do in the ocean at the waves. Yeah, lots and lots of different ways to practice. And so I highly recommend it because it's nice to, especially if you have new weights and pressures in your body, to find ways to take some of that off. Some of the pressure leaves your lower back. It opens your hips, makes it a little bit easier to be stable in your feet, perhaps as you soften. And so certainly there's lots of good ways to do that. As long as, again, it is continuing this process of opening and softening, coordinating your body, quieting your mind, then it's really good Qigong. And I think there's lots of different ways to do that. And so if you find one, you let me know. Yeah. I actually think, speaking of Ken Cohen, he has a water Qigong practice. I know that he created his own Qigong set based on the Orca, which I had no interest in learning, but I thought it was interesting that he did that. And I think he has one that he made as well that's designed for swimming pools, which is pretty interesting. But I never learned it. I wasn't that impressed, but I love that it's out there, and there's so many different things.
You were helping me with I thought it was a specific Qigong practice in the pool last year. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, when I was floating you?
Yeah.
That's a popular technique called Watsu. It's shiatsu in the water. And so when Mel was teaching me to swim a couple of years ago, until I just decided I didn't like swimming, but I did give it a good shot. And there's a way of doing treatment and helping her release while in the water. And she would do it. She would float me around, and that's a Watsu method. But that's just a brand name for basically floating somebody and doing treatment in the water. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that being in the water gives me a sense of safety and buoyancy that I don't experience otherwise. And so it's, I remember being able to release things that were usually really difficult to release because of these ideas I have about my body and in space. And anyway, I highly recommend it to just floating in water.
Yeah.
And just experiencing that quality of water.
Yeah.
That soft, supple, buoyant quality that we're trying to
You're so good
emulate
at that.
In our bodies.
Yeah. Mel is a champion of floating and being free in the pool. When I first started, of course, I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I've never been in the pool. I had too much damage to my ears and such. And so learning how to be in there was very interesting. And watching Mel just be totally free. She would just wave her fingers around a little bit and she'd be floating and moving through the water. It's just like an otter in the water. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, no problem, Steph. And if you or anyone else like John was saying, practice something, anything in the water, and feel like sharing. I would love to talk more about this because it's really fun.
Yeah. Maybe Shrifu has some recommendations too, since he knows that you like the pool.
Dell asks, what are your thoughts on sensory deprivation tanks?
Yeah, I know that some people really find them helpful as a way to calm down and slow down. Yeah, especially, Mel and I are both neurodivergent. We're both on the autistic spectrum. And so the world can get very overwhelming with its constant stimulation, for us at least, not to speak for everybody. And so we actually both have big headphones, and when we go out into the world, sometimes we'll wear them just as a way to reduce the amount of stimulation going on. And that's us living out in the middle of nowhere. When we go into the cities, it can be overwhelming. And so places that are specifically designed to slow and to quiet that seems like it would be very helpful for some people. I've personally never tried it, but I know some people that really enjoy it.
Yeah, I gave it a try once, and I remember the water, I think I had some cuts or something on my skin at the time. And so it wasn't a pleasant experience for me because I was itching constantly because there's, of course, a lot of salt in the water in these tanks. But the darkness and the water and the quiet were all wonderful. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. We're the kinds of people that you hear about, people that go into caves and do cave meditations and things like that to get away from things. And for so many people, it's really stressful and difficult to be in the quiet. But for the two of us, it would just be really peaceful. We would just probably sit there and go, I've actually been in deep caves before and just sat in a corner and went, this is nice. I could do this. So it just depends on the kind of person you are.
We have another really good question here from Dell. I always wondered how one can multitask like you were earlier. So I asked my Shrifu, and he said, quote, you can have different levels of awareness. See, even now I'm talking to you on the phone and riding my bike, end quote. What do you think he meant by this? He says, LOL, my Shrifu is quirky like me. I love him.
Yeah, I've heard only good things about him. Different levels of awareness. Talking about multitasking. Well, I think that two things. One, I think it's probably better to talk about task switching rather than multitasking, because it's shown in a lot of studies that humans don't actually multitask in the way that we imagine. And some people are better at task switching than others. And so for me, for instance, task switching is really easy. Do you mind me mentioning you?
Oh, no, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Task switching for Mel, speaking of which, as I interrupt her, is can have a really big toll on her. It's exhausting. And so I've learned how to do that less. But for me, for instance, I can easily listen to a book and remember a huge amount of that material while doing other tasks. But the truth of it is not that we're doing two things at once, but rather we're going back and forth really quickly. And like I said, for some people, that's easier than others. And for some people, it takes a really big toll emotionally. That a friend of mine was actually doing there's a degree program you can do at Harvard where you're studying happiness. And a friend of mine was taking that program. And one of the interesting discoveries is that there's a direct correlation in a lot of populations, especially amongst students, between how much you multitask and mood disorders. People suffering from depression and anxiety, that kind of thing. That the more that you multitask, the more likely it is that you are to feel depressed and anxious. And so whether or not that's correlation or causation, of course, that's difficult to pin down. But I think that kind of thing is interesting. And so I think for a lot of people, learning how to single task, to just do what they're doing, can be very healing. And we have a Steph with us. Steph, did you have anything that you want to add about the multitasking, if you don't mind sharing? I know it's late for you over there, but Steph is an actual expert. And so as long as we have her here, maybe we can mention it.
Dell asks, so don't multitask too, but switch task? I think I do that too. Yeah,
well, it's that multitasking, at least as far as I have learned from the neuroscience, because I love studying this stuff. Multitasking isn't the thing. It really happens. It's really that we're switching between tasks a lot. And for some people that takes a really big cognitive load. And so that can be not really healthy for a lot of people. And so you have to be careful to find out if that's something that works for you or it doesn't. Yeah. And so, for instance, for Mel, because it's exhausting, if she was in a world like with a job or something that was asking her to go like this with task, as a lot of jobs do, that would probably be exhausting and very stressful. But for me, it wouldn't feel like anything. And so I think it's just different kinds of people.
Steph says women are better at multitasking.
Interesting.
With a smiley tongue out emoji.
Oh, she's just messing with us. It's very interesting, that world. And so I've also heard that it's a muscle thing, like you can get used to multitasking, that kind of thing, but that it definitely is exhausting for some people. And so, yeah, but I'd never noticed it because there's certain things that are much easier for me. But who knows? But for most people, in the very least, especially if they're having difficulty with things like anxiety or depression, it might be that I would recommend slowing down the multitasking to see if that helps. But I know that maybe for some people with ADHD, having a little bit like a fidget device, a little bit of multitasking can help to that nervous energy, give enough stimulation to the brain so that people can calm down. And so that also is something that may be worth experimenting with. Get like some fidget toys and see if that actually helps you focus and calm down. And maybe that's a thing that's possible too.
Yeah, I really enjoy those stim toys. I find them so helpful. Steph says, I personally find it very overstimulating and stressful. Yeah, I do too. I remember feeling really relieved the first time I heard that multitasking is a myth in the way that I guess we've traditionally thought about it. Because, yeah, I agree. It's so exhausting.
Exhausting, yeah. Yeah, I highly recommend, at the very least, learning how to single task or how to engage a stim method or a fidget toy or something, doodles, something like that, so that if you're if you experience ADHD, so that your brain requires just a little bit more stimulation in order to calm down, then finding ways to do that, I think, is a really wonderful thing that you could do. I'm really happy that our culture, at least our culture here, is becoming more comfortable with that. And stimming toys are a thing that are amazing, and Mel's been exploring them. And there's so many out there with different textures and sounds and feels and things that you might find comforting in a way that you didn't expect. So it's really worth playing around with them. Some people like squishing slime. Some people like popping bubbles. And if you can find something that actually helps your nervous system calm down without judgment, again, this is about kindness, listening. You listen to yourself and you don't have to know why it works for you. You just go, for some reason, this texture really makes me feel relaxed. This one really agitates me. So you find what relaxes you, you lean into that. And then you might find it just takes off that 10% edge of a nervous process that's going on. And suddenly life is much, much easier for you. And that's just good medicine. But instead, culturally, we, especially among guys, there's this pressure of not being weak, not needing things like that. But I think that's just silly. Good medicine is good medicine. And if you can find a little toy or something that helps you relieve some aspect of that so that you feel more yourself, it can be better than a pharmaceutical, right? And so I just think that's beautiful. Sorry, I recognize I'm missing a lot of conversation over here. I promise to read it later. Any other thing worth mentioning?
Yeah, lots of good comments, which I know you'll read later. Mm-hmm. I think we covered most of the questions. There's one from Del here. Do you play chess?
I did play chess for a long time. I was more of a Go player. Weiqi in China. And so it's just different strategic board game. And I played that actually with a friend of mine. We actually had a YouTube channel teaching Go for a little while. So I was really into it. But then as I dove deeper into meditation practices and other things, it ended up being something that wasn't following that path, and so I let it go. But I think it's amazing. Yeah. Chess can be fun, but I just preferred Go. That was the game that I played. Worthwhile practices, as long as it doesn't cause agitation. That's good. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I just hope everybody's doing well and enjoys this first day of spring wherever
Happy
you
first
are.
day
We're
of
about to
spring.
go for a nice walk outside. It's beautiful and sunny, and yeah, it's just always really nice talking to y'all.
Talking to y'all, yeah. It's always nice to give Mel the last word. Happy spring, everybody.
Happy spring!
Hooray!